Okay, in today's video we're going to talk about landing pages and PPC, specifically having to do with the topic of how do I host my landing page in order to make me the most money possible for my PPC campaigns. So in other words, if you're running any kind of PPC campaigns for yourself and you want to make more money, this is going to be a surefire way for you to do it, given that most people are not doing this in the most optimal way possible. So when I say landing page here, this could be any page. If you don't use a landing page, it just could be any old page on your site that you take traffic to. But this is about what kind of landing page hosting should I use to make the most money with PPC. And then, so landing page could be any page you send PPC traffic to. And hosting is where's the web server where your landing page is. If you use a landing page tool, you might not even know what web hosting is. You like a site such as Shopify, Unbounce, ClickFunnels, they handle the site or landing page hosting for you. But I'm going to talk about how that actually works, and then even if that's you, how you're going to be able to improve your conversion rates and money you're making from your PPC traffic if that's you. But if you don't use something like that and you host your own landing page on a web server using web hosting, I'm also going to explain how you're going to be able to make more money from your PPC if you do that for yourself as well, and what your options are. So generally speaking, I've been through the gamut. I've optimized hundreds of campaigns. I saw how fast things load from different services that you can use to host a website. Different services that have landing pages on there that you can use, certain platforms like Shopify. I know how to make a page load quickly, and having a page and the contents on your page where you're taking your PPC traffic to loads quickly, that's the key to make a boatload of money from your PPC, given so much of your money is dependent on how fast that page loads, way more than people think. There is a good chunk of people out there in the marketing space that knows about this, but a lot of people who are not in the marketing space don't know it, and they get bad advice from people that should be telling them, either IT provider, but that's somebody who may not be an internal person to their company who's not a marketing person, so they don't give them the full information that they need to know. So anyway, like I said, regardless of the situation, there'll be advice for you here to make more money from your PPC campaigns that you'll learn before this video is up. And I'm going to give you some examples of different situations where I've been in, where somebody's had a site and then I improved it, and then how you're going to be able to use that information. Of course, you'll be able to apply that information to what you're doing as well, to kind of get a little bit more inspiration on how to use these methods I'm about to give you for your advantage and make more money from your PPC. So anyway, I'm going to get into it here now. Now, what most people don't care about, why most people don't care about this topic, but why you should. So, as I touched on a little bit ago, how fast your page loads has a heavy determination on how much money you're going to make from your PPC campaigns. So, of course, what's on there is the most important in terms of compelling the user to buy. Way more, that in and itself is a major point of contention. A lot of people don't recognize just by how your information is laid out. Same information laid out a little bit differently, you can make twice as much money. So that's why you should always have a person who understands PPC and conversion rate optimization to tell you what to do in terms of where you send your traffic to, so you aren't throwing away half or more of your money just from that. But respectively, your hosting, or basically where that information that's on you're taking the user to is hosted on the internet, that has a big determination on how much you make. And the only thing that you have to worry about in terms of your marketing and PPC specifically to make the most money as possible is just to make sure it loads fast and that it actually is reliable. Reliable anymore in 2021, you don't have to worry about it anymore. How fast it loads is still a big issue. That's why I made this video here to explain where you can get hosed on in terms of not getting the speed and delivery of your landing page content that the user is supposed to see, and then with that, how you're going to improve it beyond that. So with that said, most people don't know the difference between a $10 a month hosting plan for their landing pages that they're taking their PPC traffic to, and a $60 a month hosting plan, and how much that makes or doesn't make based upon them having given bad advice and going after this cheap hosting plan to put their website on or their landing page on that they're taking traffic to. And so you can literally make half as much money just not having the proper page load speed for your landing pages. And so respectively, spending $60 a month and $10 a month it's like the most profitable $50 a month that you could possibly have spent. No matter what you're spending on PPC, you're spending $500 a month on PPC. I don't care. The math still says that you should be doing it the proper way, the best way that you can and know how, and of which I'm giving you here on this video today. So there's no excuse not to do it. However, there's just this. It's still out there today that people they beeline for the cheap hosting. Yeah, I know it's because they don't know better, but at the same time, where in life do you not get what you pay for? If you buy the cheapest thing, where in life is that not usually the crappiest thing too, in terms of quality? And so you should recognize you wouldn't put a brick and mortar business in real life on a shaky foundation. Why are you going to host your whole business's website on a $10 plan? You should be thinking, how can they make money at $10 a month? Oh yeah, they probably cut corners. So anyway, now that that's out of the way, as a side note to this, and to back what I'm saying here a little bit more before I give you the methodology on how to absolutely max out your load speed, page load speed, and then the money you're going to make from that action. The blame is tons of consultants out there that tell clients a VPS, which is short for virtual private server, is a waste because it technically has leftover space on the server and is overkill. So shared hosting is the word for these $10 a month hosting plans like GoDaddy or whatever would have. What you're doing there is the company's ramming you on the same part of the web server, and then you're sharing it with everybody else. So if somebody else next to you gets a bunch of traffic, then your web page is going to load slowly. It's almost like putting more people in a building with one fire exit, and the people got to get or one exit, and people got to get in and out of that exit. And so there's people trying to get in and out. There's only so many that can go through the door. There's only so much traffic the server can host at one time. So what you want is this virtual private server, so that you have a dedicated space on a server, so no matter what the person next to you is doing, they aren't going to take away from somebody trying to access the files on your web server, which is what they use to access your site, and slow it down. You don't want any kind of slowing down at all. And then what these cheap $10 a month companies do is they ram like 100 people on the same server in the same spot. So, for respectively what you're paying $10 a month for, they're paying $3 a month for. And so they have to put 100 people on the same server, and they just tell you what you want to hear. It's a lot of times like marketing, PPC agencies and stuff. They tell you what you want to hear. They want to hear it's $500 a month. And so, and it doesn't take any sales ability then. You buy it, they do almost no work, and they make money. You end up frustrated. Basically, there's no way to win. In this situation, with the hosting, they tell you, oh, it's cheap, just $10 a month. Okay, it's a great deal. And you're thinking, well, I don't want to pay more than that for the next 10 years, so I'll just go with the $10 a month plan. Not knowing all these other drawbacks, of which you can only get half the profit from your campaigns, that if you wouldn't have went so cheap on your hosting plan here, you could avoid that entirely just by going a $60, $70, $80 a month hosting plan and get an actual virtual spot on your server to host your website at. And so the IT person in your company might say, I've had people come in a lot of times, they'll say to the client, I'll recommend, I use Liquid Web for our website at guaranteeppc.com. It's about $100 a month for the hosting. It looks like a simple site. We're not a huge company, but I don't cheap it out. This is what everybody should do, actually. And I'll recommend it to one of my clients, and then later on somebody will come in, IT person will say, hey, you don't need a VPS. You got all this extra space on your web server you're not using. Even though you're only using some of the physical media on that server, you can get a shared hosting account that's cheaper. but they're not thinking about the page load speed. That's why I said you can't take marketing advice or advice that relates to your marketing in any way from somebody who doesn't have a marketing background. That's just death. And so they will get them off that server. Their sales are now cut in half. And that person the client in itself that gets talked into that, they're going to have no clue why their sales went in half. Now they shut something else off or turned it on because they think it's that. And then that screws up their business. It could cascade into a whole shitstorm, basically, for that person. I'm always under the philosophy anyway, if something isn't broken, don't fix it. If your business is making money, don't get ballsy and just start changing stuff to save $50 a month. Just don't figure out a way to make more money. Don't figure out a way to try to see if you can break stuff. Get in the way, where you don't need to be getting in the way of your own success. So, and then, with that, very few people are going to tell you it's good advice. You take the advice I'm giving you, you talk to somebody else, they're going to say you're an idiot for getting a VPS for your small little website that you have. And I'm telling you, it doesn't matter if you're paying $300 a month. If you're getting half your sales and you're spending $3,000 a month on your PPC advertising, what difference does it make anyway? It doesn't. And I don't know why other people to this day still don't understand this concept. Even marketing, web design agencies will tell people this all the time. Even other marketing firms will tell people this all the time. And I've got to fight the client. They'll literally want to switch off. And I've got to tell that person, look, if you do this, you're a complete, imbecile. And you have to get frank with them so they don't do it. Because if they don't do it, the extra $50 a month. Oh boy, I want that. And then they'll do it. And then they'll find out the hard way, and then you have to get them switched back to where they were to find out. And I hate even going through that action. I'd rather just give it to them dirty up front so they don't do that in the first place. So anyway, just a little insight into my world, what's going on in our business. So they're not going to tell you this is a good idea. There's some other information you're going to be able to use to increase your conversion rates other than using this VPS. But this is the first key one that you mostly have to go to if you're not using a service like Shopify already that hosts your whole website. And if you are using a service that hosts your whole website, you got to pay attention not to use the crappy fly-by-night ones because it's the same thing as the shared hosting plans for $10 a month. They look cheap, you use them, but the website loads slowly or it has no customer service. I've talked about this on other videos, but you have to check. When you switch your hosting or service provider that you're using to host your website or what you're using to have a website, whether it's Wix or whatever, you have to go to check your page load speed as soon as you're done. And I don't care if you've spent $10,000 on your switching it over to whatever you're switching it over to. If the page loads at 4 seconds, domestically in the country that you're at, and it was, you have to reverse it. A lot of people, I've seen a lot of times they get a new website, it doesn't convert as much, and then they don't want to feel like an idiot for spending all that money and time on it, so they just go, they're married to the idea and they just go for it. Well, okay, fine, but it's pretty hard to make money when you got a shackle to your leg and you're dragging this 50-pound weight behind you the whole time. For somebody like me to help you at that point, it doesn't make it very easy. If you're and the one thing you might be able to get over it, but if you have a few things like that going for yourself, now you just made it impossible to make money. Now you're going to have basically no chance to have success. So you got to think these things through, is basically all my point is here. So anyway, this is what you really should do. What our goal is to make our landing page or where we're sending the traffic to from our PPC campaigns to make the most money we can, is to get the page we're taking people to load in 2 seconds or less. Now that's not easy, but it's also not impossible or extremely hard either. Basically what happens, before I get into that, I'll have a quick graph here. Most people have seen this that are in conversion rate optimization and stuff like this. This shows what your conversion rate is as a factor as a end result of how long it takes for the user to download your landing page you're taking the user to on your site. So if it takes basically 2 seconds, you're somewhere up here on the chart, whereas your conversion rate when down here is your high less conversions. Up here is more conversions. So if it takes 2 seconds, you still got quite a few conversions. You take from 2 to 3 seconds, you've dropped quite a bit. You take 2 to 4 seconds now, you've lost half your conversions basically, just going from 2 seconds to 4 seconds. If you can get your page to load in a half a second, you can do it. One of which ways you can do that on mobile with AMP. For me, all you're really doing is trying to get it to load in 2 seconds or less. If you got that, most people's expectations are going to be, remedied. But going from 2 to 4 seconds, you can lose half your money, literally speaking. You can back this information up, Google it yourself. There's all kinds of studies done on this again and again and again to show this is true. So just going from 2 to 4 seconds is death. Almost half your conversions are gone. And like I said, you've got this now weight shackled to your leg, and you're trying to drag it, and trying to make your ads, which PPC is already extremely competitive as is, and now you're going to try to afford the advertising that somebody's going to get twice the value on, and somehow you're going to make that work. Well, sure, if you make it up in some other places, you can overcome, but you're just sure not making it very easy on yourself to do that. As you will see here, if you move on, going from 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 seconds, you're pretty much staying flat. Where the big drop comes from is going from 2 to 4 seconds. That 2 to 4 seconds is the main time that's going to determine somebody's like, they get pissed off and they're just going to leave and go somewhere else. If it takes just 2 seconds longer for that page to load. And when you go to another page, it takes twice as long to load, and then another page. We particularly get hurt on mobile because mobile devices load slower but even on desktop devices it's true. But anyway, I don't know why necessarily, just the extra 2 seconds, why it's 2 to 4 is the main drop-off point, but there's plenty of studies to back that data up. All they can tell you is, if you're not go to test your landing pages out now. If you're not loading at 2 seconds, you should do this other stuff here and get to 2 seconds. So what you have to do to be able to maximize your conversion rates as far as you can get it. I already talked about a VPS, this virtual private server. You're running an actual server. It's not a dedicated server, but it's a virtual space on a server. You can have your website that nobody shares it with you, and it's going to be closer to $100 a month. It could be more if you have a big website. If it's a small, simple 5-page website, $60 a month, something like that. But I recommend Liquid Web. Not all are going to have the same support. So again, you get what you pay for. You're safe with Liquid Web. I will stand behind Liquid Web because I use it too. Now, when you get to VPS, another reason why Liquid Web's more expensive is because they use most of the time this SSD or solid state hard drive. When somebody goes to your website, they need to get the web files off your web server. And when you have a solid state hard drive, the hard drive doesn't have to use a magnetic platter and search for it using there's a control arm on the hard drive to find the files. If you have a solid state hard drive, there's no looking for the files. It instantly picks it up. Versus on an old school hard drive, it's got to go and find the part on the platter where your files are. So it just takes a little bit longer to locate the files, but it makes all the difference here. If you want to get a 2-second load page speed, like pretty much no matter what, don't screw around, just get the SSD. It'll be a little bit more, but still for the $60 a month, your website can have VPS and SSD both. Moving forward, there's OFFSITE server and domain. So if you sell internationally, one of the things you'll notice if you go to a tool that I use to check page speed is pingdom.com. You could load your page from different locations. The farther you are from your server where the website is hosted, the longer it will take for it to load because the traffic has to go through the internet to get there. So there's extra distance to go. The longer it is, the longer it takes. And so you can see how in DC it loads a little bit faster than San Francisco, but when you're talking about DC versus Sydney, Australia, it goes from 2 seconds to 5 seconds. And that 5-second traffic, people internationally are a little bit more tolerant overall in terms of load page speed and not affecting conversion rates, but still, 5 seconds is too long even for them. So if you want to do well and you're already making a lot of money in Australia, UK, stuff like that, selling your products internationally, do yourself a favor and get yourself an Aussie domain with an Aussie domain extension, so that you can take your website and host it on a Aussie file server. So you're going to buy a second hosting in Australia, in Sydney or whatever, and you're going to host your website there, and you're going to have your website, and it's going to be whatever your website is, .com, .aud. I think AUD is the Australian, or .au, there we go, for the Australian websites. And so that when somebody goes to, when you promote traffic, your PPC for people in Australia, you can promote that site, and that's already physically in Australia now. And so instead of loading in 5 seconds, it'll load in 2 seconds, like the US traffic and server does when people are in US downloading your site in the US. So a lot of people think a CDN will take care of that. No, CDN is just for like videos and pictures, and it's for people that have big sites with lots of content on it. For people that are mostly doing PPC, where you just have a static landing page, for the most part, some content, maybe one video, the CDN doesn't help you. Having your physical server closer to the user where you're marketing to does help. It helps, basically makes all the difference, because all this other stuff combined ain't gonna get you a 2-second load speed if your server's in the US and your person that's downloading it is in Dubai. That's just the way it is. So obviously it gets expensive having servers all over the place. I would just go, if I'm not making at least 10 grand a year in a country, well, I don't have a server there. Too bad for all the people that are there. You just have to wait. And if I am, I'm investing in a server there. The next is AMP. I talked about this a bit ago. You can actually get a load speed of 1/2 of a second on AMP if you post your page on AMP. There's a lot of landing page systems and builders and stuff out there that have AMP built into the system, so it's easier. But even if you have a regular HTML site, you can use AMP. I've done it both ways. Unbounce has AMP built within it, and I also use Unbounce for landing pages most of the time as well. So you can decide how you go about doing it. But for the mobile traffic, like I said, mobile device, the reason why AMP's there is because Google knows that mobile sites load stuff slower, and so it's hard to get a 2-second load speed on mobile. But if you use AMP, you certainly absolutely will get it. And I'm usually able to get about 0.6, 0.7, 0.8 seconds download speed on AMP. There's some drawbacks to AMP I won't go into in this video, but that's one other way to do it. And with that, you're going to test the speed of your download speed on desktop and mobile, because they're going to be different on each. Okay, so with that, you may have 2 seconds on desktop just fine, but not on mobile. Now you got to think about what you're going to do with mobile, of which, if you're in that situation, AMP could potentially help you there. Next, so the platform itself. Now, if you're using, so these platforms like Shopify, Unbounce, ClickFunnels, Wix, stuff like that you can use to host your whole website or the whole landing page. For the most part, if it's expensive per month or whatever, the hosting is probably using a VPS with SSD already anyway, or the equivalent of it, which is why you're getting a 2-second load speed. I could tell you for a fact, Shopify will have a 2-second load speed, roughly speaking. Unbounce will have a 1.3 second load speed. It's more expensive even there to run Unbounce because it's just for one page or just for your landing pages, but they know what I'm talking about here, and so they overinvest in the servers that they have, so that it loads, it pulls quickly from their server, as well as they have servers around the country, so it's not just pulling from one place as well. I don't know how many servers they have, but I'm presuming that's the case. But what I do know is you can get a 1.3 second download speed on desktop, typically with Unbounce. If you want to go, have it fixed for sure, just use Unbounce for your landing page or where you're sending your PPC traffic to. Whereas the rest of your site, then you don't have to worry about the unraveling this rat's nest of things you have to figure out with your company and your whole website. There's all these hands involved in your website, but you can just use Unbounce for your PPC traffic because that's what you're most worried about in terms of conversion rates. Put your stuff on Unbounce. That's what also makes Unbounce so great, by the way. So highly recommend that. And then ClickFunnels, you can get a 2-second load speed as well. Now, I haven't tested it recently like Wix and some of these other cheaper page builders. I'm assuming that they're not as good. Just keep in mind, you get what you pay for. Unbounce is like $100 a month. So I damn well better get a 1.3 second download speed. Otherwise, they know I'm going to go and host the page myself because I'm going to get higher conversion rates doing it myself, okay? So, and the Shopify is the same thing. They know this. They're smart about it. But you're also paying a lot of money for Shopify as well. So anyway, just that's what I know about that. Just if you use a cheap one, before you get too invested in the platform, set up a test page, see the download speeds. If it's crap, then don't use it. There's a lot of people trying to knock off Unbounce and ClickFunnels and stuff like that and Shopify's. Just test them out before you get bought into. Don't be the person that builds their whole site out, sees it load slow, and just try to convince them that they didn't convince themselves they did not make a mistake. That's an idiotic thing to do. So anyway, moving forward, if you want to get the 2-second load speed, you just can't get it, and you don't want to use one of these page builders, and you have your own site or you have your own landing page on your own web server you want to use, consider using just plain HTML. It loads so much faster than a content management system like WordPress or Drupal. WordPress is the blogging platform, and everybody uses that for a website platform. It's not even coded and designed to be supposed to be loaded fast in the first place, particularly if you have a lot of pages on the server because of how the pages, the database is structured in that it takes a long time. The more pages you have on a WordPress site, I've discovered many times, the longer it takes for each page to load. So just some things that I've noticed. Try to do without a CMS if you're going to host it yourself, or at least take your landing pages that are on. If you want to you're sending traffic to your site now that uses WordPress, consider taking a clone of the page, then putting it in HTML, and then using that HTML page for your PPC traffic alone by itself, so that you don't fall and get half your sales you're supposed to because you're now loading at 4 seconds instead of 2. Then the last thing here is CDNs. So I talked about how CDNs isn't going to help you internationally so much, but if you have a site with lots of videos and lots of images, CDNs can help you, but with that, it's the same thing I've said many times on this video. Do not go with the free options. Cloudflare, people think that's good enough as is. I'm going minimum Cloudflare business plan if I'm going to do it, because it's going to load so much faster, again, because you got more resources put at your own stuff in that case, or Akamai. Personally, I would use the Akamai. Sorry, Akamai. I don't know how they say that, but Akamai first. But either case, don't cheap it. If you do have a lot of content on your site, you look into that, and that'll help the user quite a bit as well. But if you don't have tons of videos and images on your site to be hosted, don't even worry about the CDN. It's not going to really help you anyway. I didn't have on here, one other thing I could have mentioned was caching, C-A-C-H-E, cache. What that does is it takes all the files on your web server and puts it into the RAM memory instead of on the hard drive. And this will help you. It's a little bit tricky because it can cause some conflicts if your site updates all the time. Then there might be an old version of the site that somebody has on their site versus the new version that's on your site. But so, that kind of thing. But for the most part, it's not too bad to do caching. It's kind of like playing with steroids or getting a sugar high. The other things I told you about better hosting and all that stuff is better. Once you've done that, then I'm going to add in the caching at the end because, again, there is some drawbacks to caching. I won't get into all of them. The main thing is like what I told you already. And that can also cause some conflicts for organic rankings because Google may see an old version of the site, whereas there's supposed to be a new one, and then they get confused, just stuff like that. So anyway, just be aware of that. So anyway, that's how you're going to be. If you do all the stuff I told you here, you don't get a 2-second load speed, tell me. I will tell you what you need to do to get to 2 seconds because this has never failed me, okay? So as a bonus to this video, though, there's a hack that I'm going to give you that's going to make this cheap. So you're maybe be saying, Corey, I don't want to spend $70 a month, but I want all my sales. Okay. They didn't have it before, but Liquid Web now has a VPS with solid state hard drive. Their starting plan, if you pay for 24 months in advance, it's $15 a month. So it's no more expensive than GoDaddy or any of these other cheap shared hosting plans anymore. And it's smart because they know if you stay for 24 months, you'll probably grow and you'll buy other products. I get the whole thing behind it, but you can't lose with that. Now you don't have any excuse not to do it anymore, okay? And if you're using something else, of course, there's also no excuse to switch, because it's not that hard to switch hosting companies. You just move the files over there. Now, bang, you got 2 seconds load speed instead of 3. Going from 2 to 3 seconds, by the way, you may lose 50% of your sale. Or if you have 100, in other words, if you have 100 sales a month, when you have a 2 second load speed, you'll have something like 75 if it loads at 3 seconds, and if you have at 4 seconds, it'll be like 50 if you want it in terms of how that actually breaks down. I drew a visual representation of a chart that I found online that demonstrate this. So here you have your 1 second, then here's 2, 3, 4. You can't really get it to load in 1 second, so I disregard that. But going from 2 to 4, you can see you lose about half of your conversions. And then when you go from 2 to 3, it'll be a half of the half, if you will. But so there's no reason. You can easily move your files over there, and then that's like the easiest thing to do to get your speed up. It's just turnkey. Switch the files over, you're done. And then these other things, of course, if you're not to 2 seconds yet, then you got those. But the last thing about the Liquid Web, I just wanted to tell you real quick that one of the things I like about Liquid Web is because I'm also paying more, the customer service is better. I can get automated backups through them, and it'll do a daily backup for the last month. And if my site's ever down, I can call them from anywhere at any time. I can ask, they'll give me free support over the phone. I can say, why is my site down? They'll say, oh, it looks like da, 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 da. And I can say, okay, when did it happen? Oh, 3 days ago. Okay, can you restore my site from 4 days ago? Okay, and they do it all over the phone. So for me, that eliminates me having to pay somebody anyway to worry about it, because your site will go down at some point, or get broken, or get hacked, and somebody puts some malware on the site. If you're in business for long enough, it'll happen. So then it pays for itself anyway. Hope you enjoyed this video. I have a lot of other videos like this on this channel that talk about other money-making PPC strategies. If you haven't seen any of them, you should check those out. I have a blog at GaryTPPC.com/blog that has step-by-step instructions on how to do the stuff like I talk about on this video in order to make money, and that I personally do for our clients here. I write that blog and in order to guarantee the results. If you have any questions or comments about this, like I said, if you can't get a 2 second load speed, leave me a comment down below. I'll get back to you. I get back to every single person that leaves me a comment on this channel. And hope you enjoyed the video. Good luck to you in your endeavors in making your page load speeder so you get the rest of the sales that you're entitled to for your business and the campaigns that you're running.